because Brendan's the master of the turn and we want to see a few turns. Fellas, the next bloke who's coming up, you may have heard of him. If you haven't, his name's Peter Janetzki. He's a counsellor, he's an educator, and he's a speaker, and he's just an all-round top bloke. He's written a book about being a bloke, and it's up the back actually. Tomo up the back there. He'll be selling that one. It's a good read, fellas. I'll leave Pete to you. But this bloke is a professional educator, and he's got some good stuff to say. So, you all good, Pete?
I'm pretty good. We'll see if the PowerPoint's coming through. Oh, look at that. Guys, this morning I'm going to be a little bit political. And there's a real reason for this, which will make sense this morning. But as I prepared for Shed, Watto said to me, why don't you talk about when enough is enough? And originally, Jeremy from SCAT was going to come. And if you were at Easterfest, Jeremy talked about his struggle with depression. And we're going to talk about mental health stuff. But Jeremy got a gig for today, so he had to pull out. So I spent some time praying about what I should talk about. And so you're going to cop it. All right? And I don't expect everybody to agree with me. Now, if you're one of those guys who's into smartphone technology, or you've got your tablet, I've got my tablet over here. If you want to get the PowerPoint slides right now, you can go to peterj.com.au, and if you go to downloads and then scroll down the page there, there's notes already that you can take the whole slides right now. You can have a six to a page or one to a page. So if you're a smartphone guy or a tablet guy, and I know there's a few techos here, you can follow along straight away, all right? History teaches us a really important thing. This quote, it's been attributed to a couple of guys, but nobody knows really where it comes from. But all it takes for evil to triumph is for good blokes to do nothing. That means say nothing. And if we think about the biggest cult leader in history was Adolf Hitler. Influenced the whole nation. And the few men who did say stuff often paid with their life. They stood up and said, enough's enough. And I reckon we live in a time when evil can triumph quite easily, because the vast majority of good Aussie blokes don't say anything because they don't know what to say or how to say or whatever. And I want to talk a bit about that. Let me start first of all with the scriptures. Hebrews says, let us consider how to stir one another up for love and good deeds. The word consider there comes from two parts of the Greek. Basically it means, why don't you focus on, contemplate, set your mind to stirring up one another. That's pretty good. As somebody who likes to stir the pot, I like it that I'm told to set my mind to stirring the pot. And the stir up from the Hebrew, there's two parts of words there, I mean from the Greek, and you can see that up there. It means to incite to do good, to dispute or in anger, to cause contention, to provoke, to sharpen alongside, or to exasperate. So this morning, I want to set my mind at sharpening, provoking, exasperating and inciting you to love and good deeds. Isn't that a good blokey passage? Hey? So, here we go. When is enough is enough? Hopefully the clip's going to run.
Oh, I think probably one of our media. It was this one here. Hello.
I said I'd just like to ask one.
Sure.
Why did you lie to us?
Right. Well, I can talk to you
And
about
why are you continuing to lie and say, well, you know, I didn't really mean to lie?
Well, I can explain all of that to you.
I've listened to you for months. I've watched Parliament.
Yeah.
You're still lying.
Well, I can give you an answer right now if you'll let me. What I want to do is put a price on carbon pollution. Big polluters are going to pay.
I understand.
Yeah,
I've heard this 100 times.
Well, if I can just finish, so we'll have less of it in the atmosphere. There's
I understand that.
which is a good thing. There's two main
I'm not
ways.
stupid.
No one's suggesting that. Two ways of doing it. One is effectively a tax, a fixed price.
Look, Julia,
Other
I've
ways.
heard you on Q&A, I've heard you for over a year, but the thing that sticks in my craw is you stood up and said there will be no carbon tax.
And I was talking...
And a few months later,
Always
it's all
goes
coming out, excuse me, a few months later, you've changed your mind.
No, I haven't changed my mind. No, that's if I can explain that.
How can you say?
I did talk in the election campaign about the need to put a price on carbon, and I talked about what's called a cap and trade scheme, where you cap the amount of
And
carbon
then at the
pollution.
very end you said, there will be no carbon tax under my government.
Absolutely, I did say that. I talked in the election campaign about putting a cap on carbon pollution, an emissions trading scheme. We're going to get there via a temporary carbon tax to where I talked about during the election campaign. So it's a different route home than the one I thought we were going to use, but we'll get to the same outcome. I
Exactly
talked about
the same
during
outcome.
election.
Wow.
Well, I didn't mean to mislead, and I didn't foresee all of the
Who would
circumstances
have thought we'd
of this
have a hung parliament?
But we're going to get there to
Well,
do the right thing by our
When you
environment.
get in by manipulation, I'm sure it's
got
not
in by
so
the will of
good.
the people.
Well, you're making an assumption. Didn't mean to mislead anyone, and we're going to get where I wanted to go.
Yeah, well, when you start telling the truth, I'll listen to you.
Well, that was. Okay.
Over and over again, I watch Parliament. I live here. I just happened to walk in and hear that man over there say, not one person has mentioned the carbon tax in this shopping centre, so it mustn't exist.
Why is it a concern for you? What do you think about the carbon tax?
Why? Because all of the taxes and things that they're bringing in. You know, we're on the verge of retirement, and the more we try and save for our retirement, the more they take off us.
Have you worked out how much it's going to affect you week by week? Do you know yet how much you'll
No,
you'll be?
I haven't, but it's pretty basic. It will affect.
And do you think that there's going to be any effect on the environment? Do you think it's going to do anything to help ameliorate climate change?
About zero, like they're saying. I mean, there's two sides to this story. They only put out one.
Now, what's worse for you, that there's a tax or that you were lied to?
Firstly, being lied to, and the lie continues because it says, I didn't lie.
Can I ask if you voted for the Prime Minister?
I'm a swinging voter. I've voted for both sides at different times. But the one thing that I find really hard is the lie.
Ma'am, you're going to be on all the TV stations and all the papers tomorrow, so I'm sure people would love to know your name.
No, they don't need to know my name. The only thing they need to know is
Yeah, you've
I'm
confirmed
an
the
Australian.
though. Everyone knows her name.
well, I had to because they're walking through and saying no one here in this shopping centre is saying anything.
Yeah. You don't think it's
That's
fair
me.
enough that you people get to know who you are too?
No, not particularly.
But you live here in Fairfield.
I live here in this suburb.
Will you vote
I
for
shop
Julia
here.
Gillard at the next election?
Well, I wouldn't think so after what I've said, would you? You know, that's a silly question.
Really love you to put your name on.
No, look, I'm a mother and a grandmother. I have children. I have a husband. I'm an ordinary, everyday Australian, and I'm sick of the crap.
Amen, sister. I don't care where your political alliance lies. This is not about political alliance. If she can say I'm a grandmother, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an Australian and I'm sick of the crap. Rhetorical question here. How many of us have actually voiced we're sick of the crap? How many of us have actually voiced our opinions to our parliamentarians to go, I'm sick of the bullshit. I'm sick of the lies. Her own words was, yes, I did say there would be no carbon tax under the government I lead, but yet she can't say I lied. The reply is, I didn't plan on a hung parliament, so it makes it all okay. Are we going to be a nation that values truth or not? Let me give you another example. In the Senate, Senator Hanson-Young, South Australian Senator for the Greens, she moved this motion. Basically, it's a motion to say that Australia needs to acknowledge that we're one of the few countries in the world that actually have legislation to support same-sex relationships and same-sex marriage. I've highlighted there in the blue. We need to recognise that Australia is one of the few democratic nations that does not provide same-sex couples with equal marriage rights. And she calls on the government for us to address that. Now, when I heard this, I actually contacted the Senator's office and I asked her to clarify for me how many democratic nations actually have same-sex marriage laws. Let me just give you a little bit of maths for you. There are 10 democratic nations in the world that have laws for civil unions and homosexual marriage. There are 124 democratic nations in the world according to the World Almanac. That actually means 8%. So Senator Hanson-Young says the 8% is the majority and the 92% is the few. And when I emailed the Senator's office, I said, either you've misunderstood the facts or misrepresented the facts or you've lied to the Senate. And I call you to recount this and to be truthful. To this date, I've had no reply from the Senator's office. See, we need to ask ourselves, guys, when is enough enough?